Do you chuckle when you see a funny, a ha-ha to tickle your laughing hole? Don't you wish the luscious juices of comedy could just be squeezed into a cup, the excess fluid dribbling down your chin like a savage beast? Well, I'm here to tell you that such a concept does exist. But such bountiful humor must be niche, right? Guarded and gated beyond the reach of common wretches. No, my son, what I speak of today exists in bounds, while also having potential that is boundless. This is the saturated interest template comedy outline K, or more commonly known as the sitcom. Arguably man's most prolific form of media, spanning generations of pain and sin to bring us an ounce of joy, a single speck of happiness but once a week in this god-forsaken planet. But as you may expect, not all sitcoms are absolute gold. In fact, you could argue most programming in this genre is closer to a lowly warm buttercream hue. Now you see, some heathens have tainted this sacred format with revolting writing, predictable plots, and crummy character arcs. They've found a way to trick the mindless masses into spewing milk out of their orifices when that pre-recorded laugh track commands them to. But today, I don't want to talk about this. I may have seemed somewhat off these past few months, a bit on edge, and my content has reflected that. You see, I suffer from undiagnosed sits-on-ass disorder, but you can just call it sad. Yes, I am a sad little boy because I sit so gosh darn much as I watch classic sitcoms over and over again. But today, this stops. So for this very special episode of the Knowledge Hub, I'm gonna focus on something a bit more positive. Oh yes, I'm talking about the best that the sitcom format has to offer. Shows that excel in quality, excite in creativity, entertain with continuity, and evolve with opportunity. So get on your happy hats, boys and girls, because we're about to begin. So first we gotta define what exactly is a sitcom. Now many of you may be under the impression that a sitcom needs a laugh track. It needs to have romance subplots and overall writing eloquence that makes you bash your skull in. Well, you know, that is a sitcom, but it's not the only things out there. Any comedy with a set cast of characters that carries it from episode to episode is a sitcom. That's it. Now, it might seem pretty broad, and that's because, my god, it really is. Everything from The Simpsons to Malcolm in the Middle to freaking Jimmy Neutron. They're all sitcoms. But yeah, we got a lot to work with. Some would say too much, and I say too much. So I'll try and set some ground rules so we aren't here all day. So I'm only going to talk about live action shows, no animation. I think that those really deserve their own videos. Something so special about this. And finally, I might not mention your favorite sitcom or whatever because maybe I just don't like it, or maybe I just don't like you. You ever think of that? But anyway, I'm going to split up the history of these shows into a couple eras. These all represent the biggest shifts in the direction the standard American sitcom was heading, or at least the ones I watched. So this may be a bit confusing, but this era is basically everything before the 1990s. All the sitcoms. Sitcoms were, well, just a bit different back then. I mean, television itself wasn't like it is today. The content was simple, inoffensive, and safe. People watched TV for one purpose: to pretend that they were in a better house, had a nice job, and nice friends, instead of accepting the reality that was their sad, terrible lives. So that's really what sitcoms became about: escapism. Shows generally had a good and sweet message, throw in some heartfelt endings to tug at our emotional core. Problems were resolved neatly by the end of the 22 allotted minutes, only for some wacky adventure to come about the next week. You felt happy watching the characters on screen feel happy, but that doesn't mean all content was trite pandering for the diseased masses. No, actually some of it was fairly watchable. Drinking some beer, drinking is fun, nothing to fear, drinking with my son. Sure, this may not be the most relevant program I could have started with to captivate America's youth, but who cares? It's Cheers. Grab a beer at the bar and sing songs about Boston, cause Norm, he is fat and the drink's gonna cost him. Now, if you watch the show for the first time today, it might seem a bit cliche in some regards, but there's a lot of charm in there. Like this. It's just so charming. You got your set of wacky characters spouting one-liners, dealing with relationship problems, and your mix of fun-filled subplots. Okay, so maybe it's not anything too groundbreaking, but it did it all really well. Just trust me. You have these consistent underlying themes of people trying to make their way in the world today, dealing with the struggles of the common man. A close group of buddy old pals get into crazy adventures as they drink away their sorrows. Sometimes the friends must come together in order to defeat some antagonist, generally a wealthy businessman who makes flippant remarks regarding the gang's overwhelming poverty. A sort of lower class versus upper class dynamic prevails throughout the show. I mean, it's not really poignant social commentary. The lower class holds the moral high ground as the upper class is driven by ego and greed. I mean, it certainly fulfills its purpose of being escapism for the general public in this sense. Now, I should probably talk about the actual comedy involved in this whole ordeal. Comedy evolves, sentiments change over time, and comedy of the good times era was very tame by today's standards. There's lots of innuendo rather than explicit language, a mix of lowbrow jokes with some pretty decent ones. It's funny because Sam is bald, it's funny because Norm is fat, it's funny because Cliffy is a disappointment. But the world was changing, and the networks were ready to get a bit more edgy. Okay, the 90s were certainly fine bees in my book. Hey, they can't all be zingers. Sitcoms are like an organism, and Darwin was about to slap him in the face with some evolution. It was no longer essential that every show made us feel all good and happy inside. This was because the 90s were perfect in every way. The general public crawled out of its crippling depression. At least some of them did. Shows didn't need to be some sort of happy drug that makes you forget your dog was still waiting for that kidney transplant. No, your dog is dead, and this man killed him. Shows could try something new for a change. It was the summer of George, baby. Anything can happen. The general themes of these classic shows focused on day-to-day life, with both its ups and downs. Many conflicts in shows were more serious and pronounced than in prior decades, and could either be used to break the general flow of an episode or be played off for laughs. And oh, did we laugh. Jerry, you silly, slappy scrumble, you. Our protagonists would generally be flawed characters who create problems through their own poor choices. Frasier is too stubborn to pay for the parking garage. Jerry resorts to stealing old ladies' groceries. Bill Cosby makes some special sauce, and Kramer tries stand-up for the first time. Oh, what fun we had. As for the comedy itself, there was less restrictions on what was deemed acceptable, allowing for some shows to really push the envelope for what was on network television. This really opened up the door to have some real conversations on the pressing issues of the day. Issues like shrinkage and sodomy. See, the networks had to change since cable and satellite channels were growing tough to compete with. Stuff like South Park was just flat out better, and everybody at NBC was gonna lose their jobs. They needed to captivate the youth market with the Fresh Prince, and he would arrive in the form of a naked blue angel. I was just a young boy when he came to me. In this era, sitcoms broke away from the tired tropes tried and true. Countless chuckles came cheap before, but now couldn't carry credence. Laugh tracks became antiquated. Sitcoms needed a new direction. And yeah, they found it. It's that old handheld pseudo-mockumentary style. You know, it's everywhere now. It really got popular right here. Curb Your Enthusiasm, The Office, Arrested Development, and probably many more. Now, it wasn't just the camera work that differentiates these shows from their predecessors. In this era, the main character would be the straight man that the viewer could relate to. The average Joe going about his day. Usually a well-meaning individual with some minor character flaws. Normal problems of work and family would occur, but ought to be supplementary. Usually some crazy random conflict would arise and require the main character to intervene. Most conflicts would be brought about by the eccentric group that surrounds our protagonist, usually not by choice. But it wasn't also different than before. Classic sitcom cliches continued to thrive. The generic will they won't they romantic subplots popped up here and there, with a few emotional beats sprinkled throughout the seasons to break up the wacky hijinks. And there was a lot of good here. Pretty good. But then it ended. Network TV is stupid now. But this means we would have to look elsewhere to find our sitcom fix. Our good old family friendly fun should just be around the corner, right? This veil of emptiness covers my broken body. Joy is but a lie. Now, I originally had some stuff written and recorded for this era, but then I realized most of the sitcoms that have really found major success are, well, they're animated. And yeah, I made the rule of not talking about these, so as for the live action stuff, I don't know, it just went insane. Yeah, that really cuts the video down. Usually I try to tie everything together with some message about society or some garbage like that, but I guess it's kind of hard here. So what I'm trying to say is, well, I can only really convey it in song.
So you sit at home on a Friday night, you cry 'cause you're all alone. No one makes you put the TV treat you and free. The nationwide skies witness our TV.
This is Tyler of Knowledge Hub.
Drinking some beer, drinking is fun, nothing to fear, drinking with my son.